This is Chris live in central Pennsylvania talking about a timely issue of importance to South Africans and maybe folks around the world for that matter. It's hypocrisy of actors in sport. In this case, it's Cricket South Africa, the board that governs the sport of cricket in South Africa. So I talk about that, but let's talk about sport and protest and politics in general. You know, honestly, sport and politics should not mix. Sport is something that's supposed to bring people together, to unite people, to play together. But politics always pervades sport. It's a convenient tool for political leaders to use to demonize and attack their opponents. Let's go back to 1980. Well, let's go back to the 1960s in the Olympics in Mexico City, when American track stars in protest showed the racially divisive black power symbol by raising their fists when they were awarded their medals on the stand. Now, these athletes paid a price for their political activity. They were ostracized and banned from further activities with the Olympic team, and they got what they deserved. But I have to give them credit for the courage of their convictions to do it, while I don't accept what they did. Then, of course, we go to 72, and we see the Palestinians attack Israeli athletes, killing athletes in Olympic Village in Munich, and then the hijacking, attempted hijacking, and the terrible thing with GSG-9, in which they killed all the athletes in the helicopter. Terrible stuff there, Munich 72. Then we jump ahead to the Olympics again, more controversy in 1980, when the United States refuses to participate in the Olympics in Moscow because of the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan. And of course, 84, the Russians, the Soviet Union, refused to participate in the Los Angeles Olympics, tit for tat. But of late, it's been less national Olympic committees and national sides and more individual athletes, idiots like Megan Rapinoe, who pushed their twisted personal political views onto a public that pays for their uniforms. Also, the shameful conduct of the U.S. women's national rugby team in New Zealand in 2022 during the 2021 Women's World Cup, in which they took a knee to insult American patriots and insult the United States, thinking they did something brave politically. No, you just embarrassed yourself and have lost support from people like myself who fund your activities because of your hateful speech. It has no place. It should not be there. Now, we're going to talk in this conversation briefly about the Cricket South Africa and its shameful conduct. In 2021, a report had been commissioned to look into the history of racism in Cricket South Africa, dating back to the end of apartheid, ironically, found there might be credible information against Graham Smith. And he was quickly demonized as a racist for his hiring practices, for his favoring of non-black athletes in the game of cricket. There aren't a lot of black South Africans that play cricket, quite frankly. Let's be honest about that. To start right there, there's a lot more Indians and whites that play. So his name was drugged through the mud. You'll find Graham Smith's name associated with racism in cricket going on for 2 years. And he never did anything inappropriate. But Cricket South Africa instigated this report, damaged his reputation into perpetuity, and got away with it. This is a race-hustling governing body that has no business governing a sport like cricket. Now what are they up to? Well, now we're going to talk about the current events with Cricket South Africa and its shameful race-hustling, in this case, anti-Semitic conduct, and its hypocrisy. You see, Cricket South Africa has not said anything about the actions of Hamas, its war crimes, its crimes against humanity, and its terror actions. Cricket South Africa is silent on that, as it should be. It's not something for sport to get involved in. But Cricket South Africa is now going after the under-19 South African cricket captain and doing an investigation into him because he said something in an award ceremony. An award ceremony, the Jewish group gave him an award, Jewish athletes, and he spoke about Israel. In response, they've begun an investigation into him to tarnish and to destroy his reputation and his future prospects as a cricket player in their anti-Semitic activity. So this is a response that came out today from a body known as the South African Boycott, Divestment, Sanctions Coalition. Now, BDS is a racially driven religious hate group that attacks Israel on a daily basis, seeking to prevent people from investing in Israel, the only genuine democracy and republic in the Middle East, where everyone gets to vote, regardless of origin, skin color, or religious affiliation. The only country in the Middle East that actually happens. But they're trying to lead this BDS. South Africa has a BDS coalition of malcontents. Now, the South African Boycott, Disinvestment, and Sanctions Coalition, through their spokesperson, Roshan Dadu, said that the comments of the young cricket star weren't fit for a person leading a national team. Really? Now, this is what he said. Our government recently submitted a referral to the International Criminal Court for war crimes and prosecutions against Netanyahu and the Israeli war cabinet. Yet Tiger, young cricket player, sees fit to honor the genocideers, rendering himself unfit to represent our country on the world cricketing stage. We welcome the independent inquiry and are confident that Tiger's star will fall. Now, first off, for Mr. Well, I don't know, it's Roshan, I assume Roshan is male, Roshan Dadu, you're an idiot. Israel is not a signatory to the Rome Statute, so your incompetent, hypocritical government in South Africa can refer people till the cows come home. It doesn't change anything. The International Criminal Court based in The Hague has zero jurisdiction over the government of Israel or any activities that occur on Israeli soil. Zero. They also have zero jurisdiction over the Palestinian Authority, who has not signed the agreement either. So this is a moot and stupid point. And you are gaslighting people with your anti-Semitism by including that. That is not even germane to the conversation. If you want to have a conversation about what the young Mr. Tiger had to say, then have a conversation on what he said on his merits, not on some fictitious nonsense perpetrated by a corrupt, hypocritical government of South Africa, which has never criticized the war crimes, the daily war crimes by Hamas, using schools, cultural sites, hospitals, clinics as bases of military operations and attacking civilians from there. These are war crimes. It's clear-cut war crimes. The Hague itself investigates war crimes like this. The ICC does investigate war crimes. Of course, it has no jurisdiction in this case. But these are war crimes. And the ANC not only has not called out Hamas for their war crimes, let alone their terror attack on the 7th of October. They've actually encouraged them and maintained strong diplomatic relations with them while calling in the Israeli ambassador and giving him a démarche. They've done no such thing to any Palestinian Authority representatives, including Hamas. The hypocrisy is beyond the pale. It was not immediately that Israel attacked in response to the events of October 7th. It was a few weeks before they crossed the border. And in those 2 weeks, total silence from the government of South Africa. Never responding, never criticizing Hamas, never calling them out for their daily war crimes and crimes against humanity. Not a single word. And to use the incompetent government that also fails to call out Vladimir Putin for the kidnapping of Ukrainian children, an element of a crime against humanity, an element of genocide. That's an actual element of genocide. So your reference to the South African government contacting the International Criminal Court is ludicrous, Mr. Dadu. Not everyone is stupid. We didn't all go to South African schools and get 30% in English and 30% in math and 35% in science. Some of us actually have educations, Mr. Dadu, and that includes millions of South Africans who aren't stupid as you think they are. Tiger sees fit to honor genocideers. Genocideers. Talk about the racist, anti-Semitic, religious hate that's in that statement. A group of people who actually suffered a genocide, an attempted extermination of the Jewish people, perpetrated by the fascist Nazi regime and Eastern Europeans. To claim that the state of Israel is genocideer, let's just get this straight. Once again, 1.6 million Arab Palestinians live in Judea. It's part of Israel. They live there. They're not citizens. They live there. Nearly 2 million, or over 2.3 million Arabs, Christian, Muslim, Druze, live in Israel itself and participate, many of them of Palestinian origin. If there were a genocide perpetrated by Israel against the Palestinians, then they would exterminate the Palestinians in the West Bank, Judea, and in Israel proper. But none of those people are under attack. This is a lie. Now, you may take exception to Israel conducting a war. Fine. That's your prerogative. You may take exception to their tactics. You may even question the proportionality, which is a legitimate question. Is what the Israelis doing proportionate to what's happening? Is it a proportionate response? Those are legitimate questions. But to lie and to misuse words like genocide to further your hateful, anti-Semitic, racist propaganda is a disgrace. And the South African Cricket Board supports this garbage. Now, the South African Jewish Board of Deputies National Chairperson Karen Milner told News 24 that it would be unfortunate if the local governing body of Cricket South Africa would bend to the political will of other entities. She said, and I quote, "It would be a very sad day in our country if South African citizens were deprived of their constitutional rights to appease people with political agendas." 100% agree. As I've said previously, as I said when I reported the story when it first came out, this is free speech. The young man didn't call for harming anyone. The young man didn't abuse anyone. He didn't use any hateful speech towards any other group. He simply said he supported the IDF in its defense of Israel. That's not a crime. It's free speech. This campaign to intimidate Jewish South Africans and all supporters of Israel infringes on our precious right to freedom of speech. Indeed it does. Indeed it does. And it's happening all over the world. It's happening all over the world. She says it's ironic that the toxic and dangerous rhetoric being bandied about by some political leaders in our country goes unchallenged. Cyril Ramaphosa, Julius Malema, the only political leader we've really seen come out in strong defense of Israel has been, ironically, Dayton McKenzie, a xenophobe. Yeah, while a schoolboy speaking at a Jewish community event, bear in mind, this was a Jewish community event in which he was given an award, a Jewish community event, where he was receiving a Rising Star Award, is bullied into towing a specific line on international relations policy. That's an abrogation of freedom of speech. Now, let's not let South African Rugby Union escape scot-free on this. They also kowtow to the demonic leftist, hate-wanking, anti-Semitic racist. And yes, there's a difference between anti-Semitism and racism. Being anti-Semitic doesn't make you racist, because being Jewish is not a race. However, Jews are a multiracial group of people, including hundreds of thousands of black Jews living in Israel. Therefore, I say they're racist, because when you attack Jews, you attack black Jews as well. And you attack white Jews. All right. And brown Jews. So the Tel Aviv Heat were supposed to participate in the Mzansi Challenge with South African Rugby back in February. But they were removed after being extended an invitation by Mark Alexander and South African Rugby. Why is that? Are they anti-Semitic? Or are they just cowards? I think they're cowards. This is what Alexander said at the time. We've listened to the opinions of important stakeholder groups and have taken the decision to avoid the likelihood of a competition becoming a source of division, notwithstanding the fact that Israel is a full member of World Rugby and the IOC, the International Olympic Committee. But you still caved. You still caved to the leftists and the haters and the anti-Semitics and the racists. Folks, this objective position that I take is one that's not popular with the leftist hate wankers and not popular with right-wing racists and religious fanatics. But you know what? What I'm saying is correct. It's just. It's moral. The young man was at an award ceremony by a Jewish group awarding him as a rising Jewish star. I assume he's Jewish based on that. I didn't check his religion. And he expressed his support for the Israeli Defense Forces. It's his freedom of expression. He didn't have his uniform on. He wasn't at a cricket event. If he did it at a cricket event, it would have been inappropriate, because he's not there to espouse his political views, but he did it in his private capacity. And because he expressed support for Jews and for Israel, he's being attacked by anti-Semites and racists. Supporting and defending people who stand up for what's right, moral, and just is what all good and moral people should do. The anti-Semitism, the bigotry, the hatred has reached epidemic levels. And this is exactly what the political left and what Hamas wanted. That's why they did the attack. Hamas did not think that sending 3,000 terrorists in, gang raping, murdering, beheading, burning, looting, executing, was going to end Israel. They knew that wasn't the case. What they wanted was a swift response from Israel so Israel could be condemned. But what the world has not given Israel credit for was the multi-week pause it took before it went into Gaza to go after them and giving civilians an opportunity to escape to the south of the Strip. No credit to Israel for that. Now, Israel is certainly open to much criticism over what's happened here, not the least of which was their unpreparedness, their failure to protect Israeli civilians and foreign nationals who were in Israel. Their ridiculous reliance on mobile telephone towers, cell phone towers for their early warning system, which led to the gruesome torture, rape, murder, beheadings, dismemberment of innocent civilians, war crimes committed by Hamas, none of which are being condemned by the United Nations, none of which are being condemned by South Africa's ANC, none of which are being condemned by any leftist government around the world. They're simply condemning Israel. Israel's open to criticism. That's one of them. And is their response proportionate? That's a legitimate conversation. But Israel's right to self-defense is Israel's right to self-defense. And this young man's right to free speech, not at a Cricket South Africa event, not in his cricket uniform representing the under-19s, is his prerogative. And anyone that challenges that, when he said nothing hateful, he incited no violence, he attacked no groups, is a hateful, disgusting piece of human sewage. There you go, folks. There you go. Thanks a lot for tuning in. Be sure to leave a comment behind if you like. Give us a like if you don't mind on this important issue that's unfolding in South Africa that affects the entire world. We've seen this movie before. The callous ignorance of the Franklin Roosevelt administration ignoring the plight of people trying to escape fascism in Europe. And we saw what happened. To have these sick individuals use the term genocideer against the Democratic Republic, multiracial, multi-faith, free, is disgusting. Especially when they're attacking a 19-year-old kid. Foot sick. Thanks, folks. Catch you later. Take care of yourselves. God bless, and be safe out there.